Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Well, epic autumn has begun early. It started in August because never a day goes by without political drama in Westminster. And just when it all seemed relatively quiet this morning in Westminster, Boris Johnson said this.
We need new legislation. We've got to be bringing forward new and important bills, and that's why we are going to have a Queen's speech, and we're going to do it on October the 14th. And we've got to move ahead now with a new legislative programme. There will be ample time on both sides of that crucial October the 17th summit, ample time in Parliament for MPs to debate the EU, to debate Brexit, and all the other issues. Ample time.
Well, accordingly, the Queen has given her permission and Parliament will be prorogued somewhere between the 9th and the 12th of September, and it will come back on the 14th of October where there will be the Queen's speech. Let's hear what Jeremy Corbyn had to say in response.
It is a constitutional outrage. This is an attempt by a Prime Minister who was elected by a very small number of people in the country as a Conservative Party membership to ride roughshod over Parliament and prevent any legislation or debate that would stop this country leaving the EU without a deal and all the problems that it would cause.
A constitutional outrage, says Jeremy Corbyn. A constitutional outrage, says our Speaker, the man himself who's done more to fiddle with, alter, and some would say destroy the Constitution than any Speaker that's ever existed. And as we speak, there are protests outside Parliament, howls of outrage. Johnson is closing down Parliament. It's all so undemocratic. Now, this all goes back to the rumour that Johnson would literally close down Parliament over the end of October to stop MPs having a say. What is happening here is nothing of the kind. It is very normal in our system to have an autumn Queen's speech. It is even more normal for a new government, and after all we have a new Prime Minister and a new Cabinet, to want to put their legislation before Parliament. Parliament being prorogued, it will be closed for an extra 4 or 5 days. That is it. The argument, there'll be no parliamentary debate. We just had 3.5 years of parliamentary debate. It's been endless parliamentary debate. What the hell are these people talking about? Now, what does it all actually mean? Well, it does mean that the chances of Jeremy Corbyn putting a motion of no confidence before Parliament next week have gone up 4-fold, 5-fold. I would be very, very surprised now if he did not try to put forward that motion. And already Dominic Grieve, although he does chop and change a bit, but Dominic Grieve hinting that he may well vote with the opposition. Although, you know, there may be 1 or 2 Labour MPs who don't support him. I can't predict how that will go. I really can't predict how that will go. What is Boris's game plan? Well, look, he sent a letter to MPs today. And really, all he talks about in the letter is getting a new deal. So here's the plan, all right? Parliament closes down, as it was going to anyway, for the conference season. It just closes down a few days early. No big deal. The Queen's speech is on the 14th of October. And then, and here's the crucial bit, there is an EU summit in Brussels on the 17th and 18th of October. That is when Boris Johnson is going to get, and believe me, I'm confident here, he is going to get some concessions on the backstop from Brussels, and he will then put it to Parliament, and he'll say, my deal, my new deal, which actually is Theresa May's deal that's been reheated and they've changed some of the grammar, my deal, only through me can you get Brexit. And if you reject this withdrawal agreement, then I will have to call a general election. That's the kind of thing that Boris Johnson is going to do. He wants, and I've been saying this now for over a week here on LBC, he wants a withdrawal agreement. He does not want to leave with no deal. And some of the things that the Mayor of London were talking about there was absolute nonsense. But the war of words is indeed very, very strong indeed. An email's gone out to Labour List saying, if Johnson gets away with it, the impact on our country and our democracy will be devastating. We need the voices of this people, of this country, to be heard. Well, I thought they had on the 23rd of June 2016, but hey, both sides accusing each other of being undemocratic. I mean, goodness me, how many times have I said to Remainers who call you undemocratic, you don't want to implement the will of the people? The same accusation being made on the other side. So who do you think is being more undemocratic here? And if you agree with Bercow, if you agree with Corbyn that this is a constitutional outrage, come on the phone and tell me why. 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you think it's the Remainers who actually are undermining faith in our entire democratic process, which is my view, in which case text to 84850. And do you agree with me or disagree with me that Boris is doing all of this to try and force Parliament into voting for the withdrawal agreement? Please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC, and of course, you can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and comment there too. Christine is a new caller from Datchet in Berkshire. Good evening, Christine.
Oh, good evening, Nigel. All I want to say is Boris Johnson has committed treason against this country, the people of this country, not just little Brexiteers, but the whole country. He's put us in such jeopardy, such danger. So who's the dictator now? Who's the Trotskyite? That's what the Trotskys do, don't they?
Christine. Christine.
I am in charge.
Christine, isn't it normal to have a Queen's speech every year?
And King Boris.
Christine, governments...
King James did that so many centuries ago. And what happened to him?
Governments have Queen's speeches nearly every year. What is unusual about having a Queen's speech, Christine?
What is unusual about it?
Yes, tell me.
Yes. Well, the thing is, you first of all have to have the detail of what you are doing. You've been to Brussels. You've come back. What are you going to do? A deal or a no deal? You need to tell the country.
Hang on. Let's go back a step, right?
Parliament.
Let's go back, Christine. Let's try. Oh dear.
And instead of implicating our poor Queen, who has no...
Christine, what are you going on about? Every year, nearly every year, we have a Queen's speech. A Queen's speech is where the government lays out...
Crisis. You have to stop that.
Oh, so stop normal democratic procedure, yeah?
The livelihoods of this country. The people's livelihoods in this country.
Christine, what are you on about?
Nigel, don't go on and tell me
what are you on about? Right, now, tell you what we're going to do. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to have one more try, and then if you don't want to have a discussion, I'll move on to somebody else. Christine, it is normal for Parliament, it is normal for governments to put forward a Queen's speech, particularly a new Prime Minister and a new Cabinet. And what it means, Christine, all that it means is that Parliament will be closed for 4 or 5 days. That after years of debate. How is that treason?
You're saying days, it's weeks.
No, it was going to be closed anyway because it's the conference season.
Yeah, well, I don't think that the MP should have the right to do that.
But it was going to be closed anyway, Christine. How is closing Parliament for 4 days treason? Please tell me.
Because he has not told us what is he going to do, a deal or a no deal. He should tell the country that.
Yes, and he will tell us. And he will tell us in the Queen's speech. He will tell us in the Queen's speech. That is what the Queen's speech is for.
Well, the thing is, I think before he has the Queen's speech, he should address his country. His people.
I think, Christine...
He's the leader of the country, not of just the Tory party and the Brexit.
If you read the letter that he's put out to MPs today, it is utterly clear what Mr Johnson wants to do. He wants to remove the backstop and then put the withdrawal agreement back to Parliament. That is what he wants to do. I think it's clear. To say it's true, I just think it's nonsense. Let's go to Sean, who's a new caller from Nottingham. Sean, good evening.
Hi there, Nigel. I'm just phoned just to say how absolutely delighted I am with what Boris did today. In fact, I've been smiling all day about it.
Right.
Because these Remainers, Boris has fought back against them. I was watching the television yesterday and was watching how Starmer and Soubry were so smug in what they were doing yesterday, but they're not so smug today. As far as I'm concerned, these people, these quizzling Remainer MPs, and I use the word quizzling...
Very strong word.
Deliberate, absolutely, because these people they're collaborating with a hostile foreign power to overthrow the will of the British people. These people have been caught with their pants down today, and I'm absolutely delighted.
Sean, I mean, our previous caller accuses Boris of treason. You accuse the other side of quizzling. So, we are having a debate about how undemocratic everybody thinks that the other side is. But, Sean, how is what Boris Johnson has done today a particularly big deal?
I think it's great because what he's doing, he's supporting the referendum vote. He's supporting all of those Labour MPs.
How?
Because he knows that these MPs, these Remainer MPs, are doing everything in their power to stop Brexit happening.
So how does closing Parliament down for 4 days help? OK, I grant you, Sean, it may make it more difficult for them to come up with their plot to put new legislation before Parliament, but it doesn't make it impossible. I don't think it's that big a deal, Sean.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it must be a big deal, Nigel, because all these Remainer MPs are absolutely up in arms today about this whole thing. So if it wasn't that big a deal, they wouldn't be saying anything at all.
I'll tell you why it is, Sean. It's because a lot of debate has been, will Boris prorogue Parliament, right? And that meant, will he close the whole blooming thing down for 5 or 6 weeks over the period of the 31st of October? He's not doing that, but that's why they're up in arms. Sean, I thank you. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:15, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Boris Johnson's faced furious criticism from opposition parties after the government asked the Queen to formally approve suspending Parliament for more than 4 weeks across September and October ahead of the Brexit deadline. Ruth Davidson is reportedly considering her position as leader of the Scottish Conservatives and is expected to make a statement tomorrow. 6 men have been found guilty of offences relating to the sexual exploitation of girls in Rotherham more than a decade ago. LBC weather: outbreaks of rain slowly clearing southeastwards, leaving a largely clear and chilly night for much of the UK, a low of 5 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Louise Knight, and one lane is closed on the clockwise M25 just before Potters Bar at 24 because of an accident. It's causing queues back to London Coney at 22. After a car breakdown in the Dartford tunnels earlier, the Kent stretch is slow anti-clockwise from Swanley at 3. There's been an accident on the northbound M3 just before the M25. It's shutting one lane. That's causing delays back to Bagshot at Junction 3. It's also very slow southbound past the scene. Now onto the underground. The Central Line is up and running again following an earlier signal failure. However, there are severe delays across the whole of the line, and on the trains, Southern remains suspended from Redhill to Tunbridge.
This is LBC.
Food freedom isn't just about settling in for the night with your favourite pizza. It's about sprinting to your room because you've calculated that you have enough time to put on that extra comfy outfit that adds at least 30% more pleasure to settling in for the night with your favourite pizza. Fire up the Deliveroo app and find your food freedom today. Woohoo, canny!
This is LBC.
LBC Business Hour with Ian Dale. Every Thursday evening from 8, answering questions from new startups to established companies.
When it comes to selling your startup business, nobody can actually have that passion that you've got for it yourself. For me, that's why the startup failure rate is high, because they don't know how to market and sell themselves, and if they don't sell, they don't have a business.
LBC Business Hour with Vodafone Business. Unlimited data plans specifically for small businesses. LBC.
At Indeed, we understand that when it comes to hiring, it's important to have a large talent pool to choose from. But sometimes, too many good options can be overwhelming. That's why Indeed doesn't just give you access to a large pool of job seekers. We also offer screener tools that let you instantly narrow down your search. Hone in on hiring with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/redeem. Terms and conditions apply.
Have you ever lost money on an investment? If a high street bank persuaded you to buy a stocks and shares ISA, unit trust or investment bond and you lost money, Goodwin Barrett can help you get back thousands of pounds in compensation. Even if you don't have the investment anymore or the paperwork, Goodwin Barrett make it easy to find out. Text SOLD to 66777. That's SOLD to 66777. You don't need a claims management company to make a complaint, and if unsuccessful, you can refer it free to the Financial Ombudsman.
Ugh, this floor is an eyesore.
Need some flooring inspiration? Get to B&Q. You'll love our new Good Home Wood Effect flooring range, especially with price cuts on selected laminates, like Gladstone Grey Oak Effect was £10 per square metre, now £8. You can do it when you B&Q it. Pack price was £19.96, now £15.97.
You're a licensed private hire vehicle driver and you want to make more money. Yeah, I know the feeling. That's why I drive for Bolt, the new ride-hailing platform in London. I can earn around £200 a day, and Bolt drivers only pay 15% commission. Just compare that with some other apps in London. Get started today. Search Drive with Bolt or download the Bolt Driver app. Bolt, the smartest way to drive, if you ask me.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Well, Boris Johnson this morning certainly wrong-footed the Remainers, wrong-footed the opposition parties. I still don't think of itself it's that big a deal. I think what the really big deal is that he intends to go to that summit on the 17th, 18th of October, get a deal, come back and try and blackmail Parliament into voting for a reheated version of Mrs May's, treaty. And that, I think, is the real story here. But they're outside Parliament. They're screaming and shouting that because 4 days of debate are being missed in Parliament, that somehow this is a constitutional outrage. Well, Boris may have been feeling quite pleased with himself, having driven the other side into this sort of mad fit this afternoon, but he has been hit with a bombshell himself tonight, and this is pretty serious for the Conservatives. Bear in mind, they currently have a majority of 1 in Parliament. I mean, that's how finely balanced the scales are. The Scottish Sun, within the last 45 minutes, have said that Ruth Davidson is set to quit as the Tories' leader in Scotland. Insiders said she is to stand down due to the pressures of motherhood and because she is increasingly at odds with Prime Minister Boris Johnson. A spokesman for the Scottish Conservatives said Ruth will make her position clear in due course. There will be no further comment tonight. Why is this significant? Well, number one, of course, Ruth Davidson is very much a Remainer, and so she's at odds with a party that, whilst it still has quite a big Remainer wing, certainly in parliamentary terms, is becoming much more of a Leave party. And perhaps, her quitting as leader shows you to some extent the sort of realignment that is beginning to go on within British politics. But, Remainer or not, she's led the Scottish Conservative Party now for the last 7 years. And I have to say, she's done a very good job. When I've met her, she's seemed friendly, jolly, upbeat, and Conservatives in Scotland were so unpopular at one point. They were down to 1 MP. They now have 13 MPs. And I do think this is in no small measure due to her leadership of the Scottish Conservative Party and her personality, which people have found pretty attractive. The Scottish Conservatives were in trouble before this. They may have won 13 MPs, surprisingly, at the last election. Current opinion polls show they will lose more than half of those if there was a general election tomorrow. They're in big trouble in Scotland. And if she has been as much a factor as I think she has in boosting their support, this makes the calculations for Boris Johnson of calling a general election. You lose 7, 8, 9 seats somewhere. When you go into an election with a majority of 1, this is really, really big stuff. This news today does, despite the fact she's a Remainer, this does hurt Boris. He will not be pleased about this tonight. Right, now back to our callers. I'm asking, which side here has been more undemocratic? And thus far, I've had a Remainer accusing Boris Johnson of treason. I've had a Leaver accusing almost everybody who thinks we should remain of being quislings. And this perhaps gives you some level of the temperature of debate. Let's go to Aberdeen in Scotland and speak to Liam, who's a new caller. Liam, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Can I just ask you, as a Scot, do you think my analysis about Ruth Davidson being popular as a person is right?
I would say it's definitely half right if you think of, obviously I'm not actually Scottish, I've been here for 8 years.
Sorry.
But coming up here from the Midlands, I definitely see a good half who are definitely in favour of the style of leadership she's brought.
Yes.
She is popular, she's down to earth, and she makes people think that actually Tories have a nice face. Kind of going against your analysis of what they used to be considered before 2011.
I mean, they were absolutely hated for a few years in Scotland, weren't they? I mean, they really were. No, Liam, interesting. So, Liam, how do you see this? Who is being the most undemocratic? Is it Boris or is it the Remainers?
I think it's a bit half and half. I think the outrage is a little bit out of proportion in the sense of when you analyse it. I'm a Montessori teacher in a school, and my kids ask me every week, oh, what do you think of Brexit? I said, well, I don't really have an opinion on Brexit as a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It's for you to look at the evidence. So I've approached this as an evidence-based sort of approach. And I think, okay, 5 days is nothing, literally nothing. To prorogue Parliament is an emphasis on the fact that Boris is likely, as you say, going to go and bribe Parliament. I think that's the context we should be more worried about.
Yes, I think that's right. Or actually blackmail Parliament, Liam, I think is a more accurate word.
Well, yeah, exactly, blackmail Parliament. And I think that's more worrying. I don't think we've had a Prime Minister ever try to really do it in the same way that he has. And I think that's scary. What precedent does it set moving forward after Brexit with what Boris or even future Tory leaders or other leaders could do? That's where I'm now worried.
I think if you go back through our history, you'll find all sorts of strong-arm tactics have been used by governments and in Parliament over the years, Liam. And if Boris, as I think, comes back from the European summit and puts this deal, this amended withdrawal agreement to Parliament, do you think they'll vote for it?
I think they'll have no other choice to, because they're either going to say, we don't want Jeremy Corbyn, or we've got a good look in the polls, because the people think they want this Boris Johnson to get Brexit over and done with. Poll after poll has suggested they want it. Is he playing it at the hands of the people? Perhaps.
I guess
people moaning.
I guess the trouble is the withdrawal agreement really Brexit? It's going to be fascinating. Liam, thank you so much indeed for your call. On Facebook I get Sam says, I'm impressed with Boris being strong. Lynn says, people are saying this action is undemocratic. What do you call Labour and the Lib Dems and many other MPs who've acted against the Leave vote? Lynn, I get it. Well done, Boris. I get by SMS. How hypocritical of those accusing him of being undemocratic. They're the Remainers who've done all they can to stop Brexit, says Tim in Dartford. And Rob is a new caller from Warwick. Good evening, Rob.
Hi, Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm doing very, very well. What do you make of it then? I mean, this huge row that's going on here, Rob, with all sorts of, as ruder words as perhaps can be broadcast on LBC being thrown.
I'm a Remainer that supports what Boris has done.
Okay.
Which might sound a bit bizarre. I'm one of these people that a large volume of us that aren't unprincipled one way or the other about the European Union. We looked at the facts of the referendum. There was pros and cons to both, and I decided that it wasn't worth taking the risk to change. But once that decision's been made, we've got to get on with it. That was my view. There was a democratic decision.
Okay, Rob, we've got a rotten line. We're going to drop you for now and try and get you back. Charlie is a new caller from Nottingham. Hi, Charlie.
Hello there, Nigel. How are you?
Good evening. Welcome. Yeah. So there is, as we speak, Charlie, just down the road from me, there are loud demonstrations going on outside Parliament. There's a petition with 500,000 signatures on it. They're saying it's an outrage, Charlie, what Boris has done by calling a Queen's speech. What say you?
Well, that's it. It's direct democracy in action, I think it is. But I think what we've seen over the past 3 years is 4 separate mandates for a people's Brexit. You started off with the referendum, 52 to 48.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have the staff election, 2017. And then finally you have the European elections, which congratulations on your party wins, which are fantastic. But you can't see a more direct view of Brexit there. And I think what Boris has done, I'm in his camp for saying that he's the more democratic one. If we're going to do this by direct democracy, I think we should cut Parliament out of it, so to speak.
But he's not going to do that, Charlie, is he?
Go ahead.
He's not going to do that, Charlie. He's not. I mean, this is where the outrage is so confected and so false. Had prorogation, taken us over the end of the 31st of October, then I think Corbyn and Bercow and the others would be quite justified in making those arguments. But he's not doing that, Charlie, is he?
No, I suppose you're quite right with these trying to force through a 1% less withdrawal agreement. But
yes, well,
I've seen some very strong no-deal rhetoric coming from him, and I think he's given more of a chance of getting a clean break Brexit that you and I both want, Nigel. But I haven't seen that in about 3 years.
My interpretation, Charlie, is that the more he ups the no-deal rhetoric, the more seriously he feels he'll be taken by Barnier and Tusk and all the others in Brussels, and the more chance he's got of getting what he wants on the backstop. I could be wrong, Charlie. I could be completely wrong. He may well be utterly sincere in that he's well prepared to take us out with a so-called no deal. I just Charlie, I just don't believe it.
Well, that's you're right to not believe it. But I will just say one thing and say that I hope the Queen doesn't catch too much slack for this, because
she won't.
I've seen a lot of things going around saying that it's her fault for not standing by her subjects, and I'm feeling a lot of anti-monarchist feeling right now, Nigel, if I'm brutally honest.
Utter, total rubbish. This Parliament has gone on for a very, very long time. It's gone on for 340 days. It's time it was closed. It's time there was a fresh Queen's speech and a new legislative agenda. Charlie, thank you for your thoughts and for your call. On YouTube, I get Parliament always closed for 4 weeks in the conference season. This extends that by 4 days only. Absolutely. Nigel, I think you're a Tory in disguise. What are you talking about? I'm about the only person who's been really criticising Boris on Brexit over the last week. I suppose you can't really win, can you? You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It is now 6:30 and time for the news. Lisa Aziz.
A controversial order to suspend Parliament for several weeks ahead of the end of October Brexit deadline has been approved by the Queen. Boris Johnson denies opposition party claims he's made the move to force through a no-deal departure from the EU. Labour's called it a smash and grab on democracy by the Prime Minister. Ruth Davidson is understood to be considering her position as leader of the Scottish Conservatives. She's expected to make a statement in Edinburgh tomorrow. Bolton Wanderers Football Club has been saved. The struggling side has released a statement saying it's been sold to Football Ventures Whites Limited. Last night, Bury were expelled from the English Football League after a last-minute takeover deal failed. LBC weather: outbreaks of rain slowly moving off southeastwards, leaving a largely clear and chilly night for much of the UK, a low of 5 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7, LBC.
Parliament looks set to be prorogued, the Queen possibly being asked as early as today to prorogue Parliament. Michael Heseltine is the former Deputy Prime Minister.
Parliaments should use every constitutional and legal means at their disposal to prevent this autocratic government.
Sir Bill Cash is Conservative MP for Stone.
It's not autocratic to give effect to the will of the people. It's exactly the opposite.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero. Get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
Keep your business moving with less to worry about. Buy a new Fiat Professional van from the Tecnico or Sportivo ranges and benefit from 5 years servicing, roadside assistance and warranty. That's 5 years peace of mind. The best foundation for any job. Find details on your local retailer at fiatprofessional.com. Terms, conditions and mileage limits apply.
At Indeed, we believe a CV is a great way to see an overview of a candidate. But you're not hiring a CV, you're hiring a person. That's why Indeed offers tools that help bridge the gap between a candidate and their CV. Like skill tests, which let you actually see a candidate's abilities in action to make sure they're a good fit for the job. See beyond the CV with Indeed. Experience Indeed for yourself today and get a free sponsored job upgrade on your first posting at Indeed.com/redeem. Terms and conditions apply.
Block management. 2 very simple words. But what do they actually mean? Well, there's budget approval for starters, then service charge invoices, health and safety paperwork, cleaning, gardening, maintenance, inspections, contracts, insurance, emergency call-outs, and a whole lot more besides.
So for complete block management solutions, just remember 3 simple letters: ABC. ABC Estates will take care of all your day-to-day management, leaving you as happy as Larry. See abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
Are you a business owner who's ready to retire? Or maybe an entrepreneur ready to sell and move on to your next exciting project? At Barnes Rofe, we actively work with successful entrepreneurs to help them through the sales process and maximize exit value. So, why not get some first-rate advice and speak to one of our experts? Your first meeting will be free, and you can make sure you really are getting the best deal. Contact us at barnesrofe.com. Barnes Rofe, clever accountants for business.
It was a Sunday morning when I jumped on the tube.
And decided to pop down to Greenwich via
a large indoor jungle.
And when I got there, I was captivated by a sparkling
scary dinosaur just standing there right in front of me.
So off we went to Wembley Park
to look at the colourful fish.
Tap into the wonderful world of Off-Peak London. Travel in zones 2 to 6 for £1.50. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
£1.50 is an adult off-peak pay-as-you-go fare for a journey not going via Zone 1 on Tube, DLR and most London Overground services. Always touch in and out with the same card or device to pay the right fare.
Those fine wines in your collection.
Those special whiskies and spirits that you've tucked away. What might they be worth? Visit thelondonwinecellar.com, upload your list and receive a free same-day valuation. With nationwide collection, immediate payment terms and price match guarantee, step aside auction houses. From Bordeaux to single malts, from one bottle to large investment portfolios, find out more and ask about the price guarantee at thelondonwinecellar.com.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
In one way, I welcome what Boris Johnson has done by calling a Queen's speech, by Parliament closing for 4 days. I think what he's done, he's kind of brought the issue to a head. Jeremy Corbyn, put up or shut up. Because for months we're hearing Corbyn saying he's going to call a motion of confidence in the Prime Minister. Well, Mr Corbyn, you've got next week, and if you don't do it then, your goose is cooked. There will be a new Queen's speech. Boris will be off to the summit in Brussels. So from that perspective, I'm pleased that he's done it. But I am concerned about it. Matt from Lewisham says to me by SMS something that I think makes a huge amount of sense. He says, "Hi Nigel, I'm a Remainer, but for the first time in my life, I find myself agreeing with you this evening. I think this move by Boris is more about setting the scene for the EU summit and a general election. He needs to spook the EU into giving way on the backstop, and he also needs to convince Brexit's party supporters that he is one of them." Matt from Lewisham, that is right. Now, it could be that Boris's biggest battle is not actually with Monsieur Barnier and Mr Verhofstadt. It could be that actually they are going to give something. Maybe his biggest battle is going to be with his own party. Now, I was talking yesterday on behalf of the Brexit party saying that if Boris goes for a clean break Brexit, we think that's fantastic and we'd love to help him. But if he was to go down the route of reheating Mrs May's withdrawal agreement, we'd be furious about that. Have a listen to this interview. Mark Francois MP being interviewed by Paul Brand of ITV. This, I think, tells you where the big battle is to come.
If Boris Johnson removes just the backstop from that withdrawal agreement, is that enough for you to vote for it in Parliament?
No. When
that was pretty
prior
clear.
to the first parliamentary ballot, when Boris was all desperate for the ERG to vote for him, he had a meeting in the room next door to here with the senior leadership of the ERG, and he absolutely adamantly promised us that the withdrawal agreement was dead. He said it several times. Now, if a politician makes an absolute commitment to me, I expect them to keep their word, whether they're a Prime Minister or a parish councillor. So, no, I'm not voting for the withdrawal agreement, and I suspect neither will many of my colleagues.
So he can't just remove that backstop and expect you guys to vote it through?
There's too much else that's wrong with the withdrawal agreement. It's not just all about the backstop. In many ways is the worst part, but there are lots of other parts of it that are wrong too.
So, as Vice Chair of the ERG, would you be advising your colleagues to hold firm and hold out for a no-deal Brexit rather than voting through a withdrawal agreement that removes the backstop?
Well, remember, it's the House of Commons that voted down the withdrawal agreement. It wasn't just the ERG, and it was voted down decisively 3 times. And if the Prime Minister were to bring back pretty much the same withdrawal agreement, I expect he'd get pretty much the same result. So I don't think it's going to go through.
Well, that was Mark Francois, and he couldn't have been clearer. Boris, he says, told them to their face the withdrawal agreement was dead, and now he thinks it's satisfactory as long as the backstop is removed. Boris is, if nothing else, very, very flexible. But tell me, that's my view too. I said this publicly yesterday. Mark Francois couldn't have been clearer today. I do not think the withdrawal agreement actually means Brexit. If you think I'm wrong, and Francois is wrong, tell me why on 0345 6060 973. Bill in London says, Nige, I'm getting more of this now, Nige. The Westminster bubble has not only burst, it has exploded. Only yesterday, Remoaners were planning to install Ken Clarke as head of a unity government. Playing fast and loose with our constitution is fine, but Boris announcing a totally normal and within our constitutional norms of government somehow threatens our democracy. The world has gone mad. Gillian says, we've had 3 years of Remainers hijacking Brexit. It's time Boris took control. And to a certain degree, Gillian, he has done that today. Caroline rushes to the defence of the Queen on Facebook and says the Queen isn't to blame. No, well, of course the Queen is not to blame. And a Queen's speech is a perfectly normal thing that you would expect every year in Parliament. Let's go to Phil in Finchley. Phil, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel.
A few points. First of all, I voted Leave 3 years ago. I've since changed my mind, as many of my colleagues at work have. But the issue for me is what Johnson's doing, I think, is absolutely terrifying, because if you set a precedent, I know Major did something similar for a day or two, but you set a precedent like this. Any future Prime Minister, God forbid someone like Corbyn, comes in, they can prorogue Parliament, they can have the opportunity with a majority. And let's not forget, Johnson has no majority, no mandate to do this. The 2016 mandate, which some of your callers who appear to be or Remainers agreeing with you, and I don't even believe that they are Remainers.
What?
These people who are selling...
They're Democrats, Phil. Phil, they're Democrats. They're Democrats. They're Democrats. They're Remainers who respect the will of the people, Phil. What's wrong with that?
Would you agree with me that what happened in 2016, and I voted, I was part of the 17.2, along with colleagues at work, we're much more informed, much more aware. Why don't you do what you're good at and campaign? Let's put it back to the people, the will of the people.
Let's keep having I tell you what, Phil. Let's keep doing it until we say Remain, shall we?
No-deal Brexit.
Right. I tell you what, Phil. I'm beginning to disbelieve this phone call, and I'm beginning to think you might perhaps work for Alistair Campbell. But let's go back to the beginning of this conversation.
I think some of the people that are actually phoning you are coming from trolls or something. I'm a legitimate person. I listened to your show, Nigel.
Okay.
I did believe in you in 2016. I've since changed my mind, but
Phil,
that's not the point.
Phil, I tell you what the point is. I tell you what the point is. Yes, there's no precedent. It's been happening for hundreds of years.
Yes, but not in the way in which we are faced with this huge constitutional crisis.
Phil,
you might as well go back to Charles I and the Civil War.
That is utter baloney, isn't it?
Parliament makes the law.
Phil, what are you talking about? Phil, he's called a Queen's speech. What's unusual in that?
No, I didn't.
What is unusual in that? Come on, tell me.
I want this huge
He's not proroguing Parliament. He's called a Queen's speech. It was going to be closed for most of the month anyway,
yes, but
because
it's
of the party.
4 to 6 days. We know.
We've just had 3 years of debate, Phil. How much more do you want?
What is the point of looking for excuses for him? He needs to allow
Phil,
Parliament.
I think you've lost your marbles, Phil. I honestly think you've lost reason.
We should go back to the people.
That's a separate. That is a. You see, you're ringing up to talk. You're ringing up to talk about a second referendum. You are not.
I didn't vote for a no deal. I voted to leave the EU.
Right, okay. Goodbye, Phil. Goodbye. Cheerio. Have a lovely evening. Don't trouble us again. And look, I want to have a debate with everybody, but for goodness, he was not listening. And by the way, all this nonsense about Boris doing this to push for a no deal. Boris does not want us to leave on a no deal. Let's be absolutely clear about that. Let's try again. Let's go to Lee, who's a new caller from Manchester.
Hello, Nigel. Nice to meet you.
Hello there. Right, so is Boris doing the right thing or the wrong thing? Is he a Democrat or is he some sort of monster?
To be perfectly honest, I think the British people are getting exactly what they deserve.
Right.
I mean, let's be honest. If he wanted to give you a clean break Brexit, then he would have prorogued Parliament
properly
until after November.
Exactly.
So that's not what he's got planned.
I agree with that.
So the only thing that man can have planned is to blackmail Westminster. He wants to have the gap so small that they have to accept whatever he offers them.
Yes.
Which says to me, the British people are getting what they deserve. Because, let's be honest, Nigel, if you stick your hand in a fire, you're going to get burned. And they keep doing it. They keep voting them in. They keep doing it over and over again.
Wow.
And what they're going to get is May's deal. And that's the only option that you're going to get from Boris. And it's absolutely ridiculous.
Lee, I agree with that analysis, absolutely, utterly and completely. But Boris, of course, will say that this is Brexit. And if he was to lose...
How?
And Lee, this is the next step that he's got planned, all right? If he was to lose in Parliament, if the Marc Francois side of the argument won, he would then call an immediate general election and say, I wanted Brexit, Parliament voted me down, I'm calling an election, it's the people versus Parliament, support me, I'm the Brexiteer. And that would be, to you, pretty insincere, wouldn't it?
It would, but this all stems from what's happened over the last 20 years. When they made the 5-year Parliament law, they took away powers from the Queen. That's treason. It's illegal. You can't do it. So the entire law is illegal. What they've done is they give themselves 5 years so that they can do anything they want for the first 3 years, and they don't have to worry about being voted. It's like a dictatorship now.
Well, I don't know. No, Lee, it's not as bad. It's not as bad as that, but I do think it was an appalling piece of legislation. Lee, thank you very much indeed for your call. Nigel, you are underestimating Boris for suggesting he will reheat the withdrawal agreement without the backstop. No way. He is way too smart, says Les from N14. No, Les, he may be very smart indeed, but that's exactly what he's doing. And you heard it first here on Monday last week. I was the first person out there talking about this, and a lot of people did not believe me. Reese in Manchester says, we've seen it with Cameron, we've seen it with May, and now Boris will realise that he will not get a single concession, not even the backstop. Boris isn't bluffing. We better brace ourselves. Well, Reese, I hope you're right. I genuinely hope you're right. I hope we get a clean break Brexit, and even if there are a few short-term bumps in the road, all change means there are some short-term bumps in the road. But Reese, I simply don't believe it. I think the EU are going to budge. They'd love us to sign that withdrawal agreement. We'd be trapped. We'd be at their mercy for years to come. Verhofstadt would love it. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45, and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
Boris Johnson's faced furious criticism from opposition parties after the government asked the Queen to approve suspending Parliament for more than 4 weeks across September and October ahead of the Brexit deadline. Ruth Davidson is reportedly considering her position as leader of the Scottish Conservatives and is expected to make a statement tomorrow. 6 men have been found guilty of sex offences relating to the exploitation of teenage girls in Rotherham more than a decade ago. LBC weather: outbreaks of rain slowly clearing southeastwards, leaving a largely clear and chilly night ahead for much of the UK, a low of 5 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm J. Louise Knight, and the clockwise M25 really struggling this evening from London Coney at 22 through towards an earlier accident before Potters Bar at 24. A car's broken down on the northbound M1. It's struggling towards Redbourne at 9 where one lane is blocked. It's heavy back from Hemel Hempstead at Junction 8. Problems in the centre of town. Parliament Square is partly blocked with a demonstration. Police are on the scene directing traffic, but it's already looking slow on all approaches. We've also got roadworks on Bridge Street not helping matters. The A4 West Cromwell Road at Earls Court looking slow around Warwick Road. There are various restrictions in place as the lights aren't working, and on the trains, Southern are suspended from Redhill to Tunbridge.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
Prorogation is today's magic word. Is this a move by a nascent dictator or a Prime Minister just making a clever parliamentary move?
Ian Dale on LBC.
Here's the thing with some broadband ads. They promise a great price, but then come the rapid-fire terms and conditions, where they talk really quickly, whizzing past the bits that say broadband prices might go up during contract. Might, chances are they will, so the price you signed up for goes up and up and up. At TalkTalk, we don't sneak surprises into our small print. We give you our faster fibre at a price that starts low and stays low. Just £23.50 a month for all 18 months of your contract. Search TalkTalk Fibre. Surprise-free T's and C's apply. Offer ends 26th of September. TalkTalk for everyone.
Pimlico Plumbers is the company you can trust. Yes, you can. And they're so much more than just plumbers. They have qualified electricians, skilled carpenters, gas-safe heating engineers. For bathrooms, kitchens, appliances, building, roofing, drains, and of course plumbing. They've got you covered. Contact Pimlico today on 0207 928 8888 or at pimlicoplumbers.com, where the answer will be yes, we can. 24 hours a day and with a 1-hour response when required.
Do cars have feelings? This recording may prove conclusive.
My boot is big, my space is plentiful, but how rude of me, I forgot to tell you my name, Fiat Tipo. Hello. I am a giver, not a taker, so now you can have me for £4,110 less, and I wasn't much before. Maybe I will see you soon. If £4,110 less makes you think more of me, that would be nice.
Fiat Tipo Easy available from £10,795 OTR after customer saving. Offer valid until 30/09 and registered by 31/12. T&Cs apply.
For the ethical startups, for the caring community businesses, for the pioneers with a conscience. We know it's hard to be good in business. That's why the Cooperative Bank is offering new customers 30 months free everyday business banking. Search Cooperative Bank Business, where profits and principles go hand in hand. The Cooperative Bank, for people with purpose. Join us. New customers maintaining a credit balance of £1,000 plus, monthly limits for cash and cheque transactions. Other charges may apply, e.g. foreign and CHAPS payments, subject to status and eligibility. T&Cs apply.
Join us at the world-famous Royal Albert Hall this November as we celebrate 30 years of classical spectacular. Experience a show like no other with over 200 musicians live on stage, state-of-the-art lights, lasers, and a thundering firework finale. Celebrate classical spectacular at the Royal Albert Hall from the 21st to the 24th of November. Book now at royalalberthall.com.
Days and weeks can fly by, but if you're worried it's cancer, time can slow down and almost stop. That's why, with Bupa Health Insurance, you can call us about any symptom of cancer without seeing your GP first. Depending on your cover and your symptoms, we could even refer you to a consultant there and then. Bupa Health Insurance. For living. To find out more, search Bupa. Direct access services may not be available for some underwriting methods, and you may need to provide evidence that conditions are not pre-existing.
So, Sean, you did that landscaping job last week, but you haven't been paid yet. Well, that's out of order. 8 hours pushing a lawnmower in perfectly straight lines. 2 days spent giving a tree a haircut. Why hang about? With QuickBooks, you can send invoices on the go and automatically keep track of what's been paid, or not, all in an instant. Doing accounts the old way? It's crazier than that paving.
QuickBooks, backing you. Visit quickbooks.co.uk to get started.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Boris calls for a Queen's speech and she grants it. It's a perfectly normal thing. It happens nearly every year. And yet, given the kind of atmosphere our politics is in today, I'm getting phone calls accusing him of treason, saying his actions are terrifying. There are protests going on as we speak down in Parliament Square, but support coming in from President Trump of the USA. Would be very hard for Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the British Labour Party, to seek a no-confidence vote against Boris Johnson, especially in light of the fact that Boris is exactly what the UK has been looking for and will prove to be a great one. Love UK. Well, it's a very, very Donald Trump message, but it is supportive. But the really good thing here is that Corbyn's hand, to a large extent, has now been forced. And he just simply has, I think, to bring a motion of confidence to Parliament next week, or he, as leader of the opposition, will lack all credibility, given that he said that Johnson's behaviour is a constitutional outrage. I get from Jay, who's a democratic socialist, looking at his Twitter handle, please explain to me, how is it democratic to prorogue Parliament, elected back in 17, but not democratic to ask for a second vote? Jay, this is how governments outline their future legislative programme. They do it in a Queen's speech. We've been doing it for centuries. It is normal. This is not prorogation of Parliament in the sense it's been closed down for weeks and weeks over the 31st of October. And I think it was that word, prorogation, that got out there, got talked about, and it's been willfully misused by Boris's opponents today. Adam in Leeds feels very upset. You wanted us to take back control. We have no sitting Parliament for weeks and weeks. Is this taking back control? Adam, it was going to be closed anyway. It's the party conference season. How many times do I have to say this? Chris from West Norwood says, I'm so over this shambles. All Boris has done today is to divide us further. His decision is undemocratic. Even though it's only 4 days. It's 4 days of debate we need. We just had 3.5 years of debate, Chris. I mean, what's going on here? We've had lots and lots of debate, and believe me, when they come back, there will be debate when he comes back from the summit, but he has engineered it, and this is the bit I don't like. He has engineered it very cleverly. There'll be very little time to debate what he's agreed in Brussels, and he will try and blackmail Parliament. Vote. If you don't vote for this amended withdrawal agreement, there'll be no Brexit at all. That's how he'll start. And then if he does lose, he'll call a general election saying, I'm on the side of the people. I support Brexit. And for my own part, I have to say, if we do finish up with that form of Brexit, it really won't be Brexit. And mark my words, there will be years and years of acrimony to come, because they will have us at their mercy. It'll be a disaster. That's my move. That's my view. On Facebook, Paul says, smart move by Boris in the bargaining stakes. The EU are already sitting up and listening. Paul, I think they are beginning perhaps to believe him, and they are going to make concessions. Let's go to Jamie in Nottingham. Jamie, good evening.
You all right, Nige?
Hello there.
Right. I'm just ringing up. I'm a full-blown Brexiteer. Like yourself, I want to get a clean break, yeah?
Okay.
Now, when I first heard this news, I was put my fist in the air like, Boris is going for the no deal. Then I thought about it a bit more, and I'm absolutely petrified about what he's going to be doing. Because I think what he's going to be doing, the EU are going to make concessions, because I've read a summary of the withdrawal agreement. It's disgraceful. It's full of mini backstops, full of them. And I think what he's going to do, he's going to get rid of the backstop, come back to Parliament, reheat it, and then say to the MPs, either you vote for this, or you're going to get no deal. Now, the MPs, they're going to be panicking because they're going to have their backs up against the wall, like, oh no, what do we do? And I think at that point, you're going to see a significant number of Labour MPs peel off and vote for this deal. And he's going to come out and say, look, I've got us all Brexit. He is absolutely delusional if he thinks he's going to win a general election after getting through Theresa May's treaty reheated up. And I'll tell you this, Nigel,
Jamie, he might, you see,
will get loads of seats.
Well, they might, but what he's banking on, I think, is just a sense of relief that Brexit's happened. And the fact that it will take quite a long time for people to realise how awful it is. If I'd asked you, Jamie, 2 weeks ago how you thought Boris Johnson was doing, what would you have said?
Well, I spoke to Andrew Pearce about this, because he had someone call up saying, I'm a member of the Brexit Party, but I'm going back to Boris Johnson.
Yes.
Saying all the right things. And I rang up afterwards, and I said to Andrew Pearce, I said, look, Boris Johnson having a honeymoon period at the minute because Parliament isn't sitting, so he's getting to set the agenda. Now we're going to see the real Boris when Parliament comes back. All right, so now we're starting to see the real Boris.
Yeah, so you've been sceptical all the way through, and I think the number
of course, yeah.
Well, I have to say, Jamie, you know, on Sunday, sitting in this chair, I had a lady from Hemel Hempstead, Mary, who clearly a lifelong member of the Conservative Party, had voted for Boris, and she was horrified by the fact he keeps referring to the deal. Jamie, thank you very much indeed for your call. I've got time to go to Slough to speak to Vince, who's a new caller. Good evening, Vince.
Hello, Nigel. Nice to speak to you.
Good to speak to you.
I think Boris Johnson is playing a very, very clever game here. I wouldn't underestimate him at all. I think what he's going to do, he's going to go to Europe. They're going to give some concessions. He knows that the Parliament, they're not going to get this rehashed deal through Parliament. He'll come back to Parliament. They'll debate it for a few days. They'll throw it out. We'll end up leaving with no deal, which I think was what Boris wants in the first place. He can then turn around and say, well, it wasn't me. It was all these Remainers that just didn't want to get it through.
Vince, I so hope you're right. I so hope you're right. I really do, but I don't think you're right.
Oh, Nigel, please.
No, I really don't. I don't think Boris wants to leave on WTO terms. If I'm wrong, I'll be delighted to be wrong, Vince. And if I'm wrong, I would.
A tenner.
All right, I'll have a tenner with you. That's fine. I'm not sure we're allowed to gamble on air. It's against LBC rules. When you meet me privately, we'll do it, but I can't do it on air. I'll get sacked. If not for this, something else, I guess. Vince, I honestly, I hope you're right. If you are right, I would support Boris all the way and want to help him.
Yeah,
but
me too. And I think one thing I would say was everybody's going on about how unconstitutional it is. Were there not 100 people meeting at Church House the other day, all trying to go back on what the British people voted for in first place?
I know. And they looked, in fact, it all looked so amateurish and such a shambles. It reminded me of the launch of Change UK. But isn't it marvellous? Isn't it marvellous, though, Vince, to see Anna Soubry, the leader of this party that currently commands 0% in the polls, all over the BBC and media everywhere. Vince, thank you for your call and thank you for your optimism. Evelyn in Glasgow says, I didn't agree with your view last week about Bojo, but now I do. And if Ruth keeps this up, they'll lose 13 seats. Well, I tell you what, it has, as a start to the day, it was very good for Boris Johnson. A lot of Boris Johnson supporters really thinking this is fantastic. There are one or two now beginning to read between the lines in this letter that actually it's a new deal that he wants after the European summit on the 17th and 18th of October. But I do think, even though she's a Remainer, it's not the point. I do think the personality of Ruth Davidson has helped them to get 13 seats in Scotland. I think the day's finished up pretty badly for him. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show. I am back tomorrow at 6. At 10 tonight, it's Ian Payne. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
Nigel, thank you very much indeed. Well, prorogation is today's magic word. We're going to explain exactly what it means. We have two of Britain's leading constitutional historians